Hello, Fear Hippie Heroes here, and today we are going to see what appears on YouTube. We're going to be watching a video by Scott Junds. He's an awesome creator, a content creator. Make sure you give him a like and follow, a good guy. And we are going to be discussing if pentimento is too strong. So let's get into it.
Hey guys, Scott here. Today we're going to talk about Hex Pentimento and whether or not it is too strong and how you can deal with it in solo queue because it is definitely known as the solo queue destroyer. I saw a tweet by Otz talking about a bunch of problematic perks. Pentimento was one of them, and I completely understand that point. Pentimento
I
in
haven't
solo
seen that
queue can sometimes be a just free win for the killer, but I have less
sometimes.
sympathy in terms of like wanting it to be nerfed because it really is a perk that is entirely up to the survivors to give the killer. For those who don't know what Pentimento does, it lets you relight a broken totem on the map, and when you relight that
It
totem,
is,
every
however,
gen
it's
is
not
slowed down
obvious
by
they always have
30%.
it.
It is not even close. It is the best slowdown perk in the game by such a wide margin. It's essentially the strength of two slowdown perks in one. It is insanely impactful to the point where it just straight up wins you the match if you're able to get Pentimentos up. And a lot of people in solo queue do not know how to deal with it. And because of the lack of communication and things like that, it can be extremely hard to deal with. So, here is how you deal with it in solo queue. There's a couple of ways. First up, this is a method that requires a general message to be sent to everybody because it requires cooperation among everybody for it to actually happen. And that is just stop breaking totems. Stop breaking totems in general. Don't break dull totems for inner strength. Don't break hex totems. Don't break anything
It
ever.
depends.
There's pretty much one exception to that, and we'll get that in a second. But there is no hex perk whose existence is more of a threat than Pentimento. And typically, if killers run hex perks nowadays, they're going to run Pentimento with it because why
Devour?
would you ever not? You either get the powerful effects of a hex or the extremely powerful effects of Pentimento. There's no reason to not run them together now. Every once in a while, you will get a random killer who's just running Rune, and that's it. And you're like, well, that's weird. But for the most part, if you see a hex perk, you have to assume that they have Pentimento because of the effect that it has in the match. Remember how people said that Dead
It's
Hard
very
was so
strong.
strong because it actually has an impact on the match even when no one has Dead Hard? Killers have to play around it. This is sort of the same thing. Survivors have to assume the existence of
Yeah, I
Pentimento
honestly
as
forgot
soon as
about
you
that
see
for
any
a
hex
while.
perk. You just have to have that in the back of your mind. And because of
Great
that, no
comparison.
hex perk is worth breaking except Devour Hope. Devour Hope is the only perk that's
Yeah.
actually scarier than Pentimento, and that does warrant a hunt for it because that can just end the game instantly rather than make the game take longer to win. So Devour Hope is the one exception. You do need to find that. And it's a little spooky because if you're not breaking totems, you find out once it's starting to be too late. He's already got the expose, and that's already going to be a huge problem. But you can kind of tell if a killer has Devour Hope, or at least be hinted pretty early if they do, based on their playstyle, and you see a Hex. If you see a Hex,
Yeah, they
try to
keep
pay
on
attention to
leaving
what
the
happens
hook.
with the killer when they hook somebody. If they immediately fuck off as far away as possible, it's a pretty good indicator that they're running Devour Hope. If they're kind of hovering in the area and they don't seem concerned about maintaining a stack or gaining a stack of Devour Hope, then they probably don't have it. So that's pretty much your main option there. But that's the only exception. Every other hex perk in the game is not stronger than Pentimento. And a common setup one is Plaything. Guys, please stop breaking Plaything. It is never worth the time spent to break Plaything. And look, I understand it puts you in a
True.
bad scenario sometimes. If you have a Leatherface with Plaything, that's scary. You can be on a generator, you don't hear anything, and now you're just down because
Plaything
there's
is
red behind you and
definitely
you
one
can't
of
kill.
the stronger hex
Individually,
perks,
to a
just
single
because of
player, that
its
is scary and it
activation
does suck. It gives
condition.
the killer a lot of strength. But again, just you going down there is still not as impactful as everyone in the entire game being slowed down by 30%. And it's not
Huckies and
just that slowdown by
Draculas, they're some of
30%,
the
because it's not
weaker
like everyone just
ones,
sits on gens anyway.
unfortunately.
Usually you have one
Even
guy
though
trying
they
to
had
look
great
for it, one guy trying to
activation
power through it,
conditions
one
as
guy's trying
well.
to save you. Basically, try running a hex build with Pentimento and watch what happens as soon as you set your first one up. You will notice gens just stop because people are looking for it and people don't want to power through a 30% slowdown. So the point is, even though individually you may suffer more, killer might have blood favor up, which makes getting chased by that killer much, much harder. The pallets that you have are no longer even usable, and you just pretty much have to hold W. Even then, all of these things, even though they individually may be more impactful with you going down as a player, they still don't impact the game nearly as much as Pentimento. So if you just don't interact with any of these hex perks, the killer essentially just doesn't have any slowdown. And their chases will be quicker because they probably have hex perks that will help them with that. but the game will go so much faster that it's still not worth it to actually break those totems. So that is my main advice. Just straight up don't break totems. There's just no reason to really do it anymore. The effects of pentimento are too strong and the threat of it is always present, and you have to respect the fact that it could be in existence. But this is only a strategy that works if everyone is on board with it. It's sort of like the plague don't cleanse strategy. Everyone has
True.
to be on board with it. If you're not on board with it, well, then you're just going to be in a scenario where one guy is screwing you over and you're right back in the same spot. So, more realistic take for solo queue. You need to keep track of every time someone breaks a totem on the map. You will have teammates that will break hex totems, and as soon as you hear that thunder, I don't care if you're getting chased, you have to look where that totem is. You need to get a general idea. Now, you're not going to know exactly where it is, obviously, but you'll get a very good clue, roughly, of where it is. And that's all you need. You just need to go in the general area. You'll be able to hear the fire burning sound effect, and you'll be able to break it. So as soon as any of these are broken, find where the notification is, go towards that area, and then wait for the pentimento to show up, and then go break it. So you do need to keep a mental map
True, I
of
do
where
need
totems are being
to pay
broken,
more
because you need to
attention
assume
to
everybody on your team
notifications.
is a drooling idiot that immediately just loses object permanence as soon as they break a totem, and they will never remember where they broke it to cleanse the pentimento that
That is
replaces
true.
it. So that is probably the most important thing I can tell you in solo queue. Remember where totems are broken. If you want to break one yourself, that's fine. Obviously, it's a lot easier for you to remember where you broke it. I still say don't bother breaking them at all, but say it's like Devour Hope or something. Still remember where you broke it. And that's a lot easier because you know the exact position. But just pay attention
Hmm?
to the explosion sounds, hear the thunder, look where it's happening, and then you should be able to go and find the pentimento. Now, it's still going to waste a lot of your time. You have to walk there. You have to spend 14 seconds breaking the totem itself. So it's still going to take you time, but that's better than everyone getting slowed down by 30% and frantically running around looking for the totem. So that's still the lesser of two evils there. So the question is pentimento too strong of
What's
a
your
slowdown
question?
perk? A lot of people
Hmm.
suggest, hey, maybe make it so reversed how it kind of used to be, where 2 stacks is the generator slowdown and 1 stack is the healing.
I would say I actually went up against, I think it was a yellow or green pentimento the other day. I believe the speed was only 20%. And to me that felt like just about the perfect rate. It wasn't too fast, wasn't too slow. Pentimento is not really like super strong unless it's combined with like plaything, which it normally is. Um, so it really felt like it was a good speed. It felt like it was in the right spot. Did not feel bad for the game. Did not feel bad for either side, really. I felt like. However, I will say, like it Scott mentioned, if nobody cleanses it, I feel like it should also have an effect like, for example, if nobody cleanses it, cleanses any tokens throughout the entire match, you should still get some type of value in that you should open exit gates like 50% slower. I feel like that would be a great way to like buff it and nerf it so that it can be more consistent overall up against a wider variety of builds while also having a more healthier gameplay aspect.
Slowdown. I don't think it's a good solution. With that version of pentimento, it's just not worth running. It's not even a good perk. It's only good if it's on that first stack, you get the generator slowdown. And the fact that the
True.
entire perk only functions if survivors give you the perk makes me think it's not overpowered. It's without a doubt the strongest slowdown in the game, like no question. But I don't think it's overpowered because it is technically fully in control of the survivors to give you that perk. If they don't break any totems, you don't have a perk. And so it's really just about knowledge and knowing how to counter it. And if the main problem with it is that people are just dumb and don't know how to handle it, I don't think that warrants nerfing because you can't balance things around people that just don't know what to do. You just shouldn't
You
balance
can make
things
it more
around,
user
competitive
friendly
players
though,
either,
like
but it
how
should
they
be
did with the
around, the average,
UI.
somewhat knowledgeable player that understands like what a hex perk is and understands what pentimento is. You can't be balancing around people that have no idea how to handle it because then you can't balance anything ever. So those are my tips. Number one, as a general consensus, don't break totems. They're just usually not worth it. There's a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, it's just not worth breaking totems. Like Plaything is a perfect example. Just leave that shit up. It's not worth it. And if you are still having people break totems, pay attention to where the explosions are. And then once you see Pentimento light up, you'll see your generator bar go red.
With
You'll see the
favor, rear,
indicator
and
that your
crowd
hex is on the
control, you
right side
need
of
to
your
break
screen.
those.
As soon as you see
They're
that,
very
go to where you
strong.
remember you saw it break and just go and break it.
They're not
You
very
might have to
strong, but
play
strong.
babysitter for people that are being dumb, but that's okay. As long as someone is doing it, the game can proceed a bit more smoothly. So those are my takes on Pentimento. It is fairly easy to deal with, but expecting random people to deal with that is a problem. So you really got to do it yourself.
True.
And once everyone gets to that point, I don't think the perk will be nearly as strong. It's just really due to ignorance of how to deal with the perk that it becomes such a strong perk.
I will say, like, one thing about uh, pets totems and boon totems in general is for the longest time, I did not understand them. I had no idea what they meant, so or what people were talking about whenever somebody say that phrase, even though I came out in like the era basically of when Circle of Healing first came out and was super strong. Um, so it's very hard for newer players to grasp. And one thing I wish they would talk about in the tutorial of the game is I wish they would mention boons and hexes a little more. Because it's confusing to a lot of players and what exactly they do. Um, I want things to be a little bit more user friendly, I would say. And a lot of times I didn't even realize I walked past the totem anytime I did. Occasionally I would look and see something glowing, but I did not realize for a long time, hey, that's a hex. It's just glowing and shiny. I'm like, it could be just a visual effect or something. So yeah, I feel like pentimento, if you're gonna make it more healthy for a game, reduce the speed, gen speed. If nobody cleanses it, make exit gates take longer, something like that. Um, because it is a very strong perk and it's not user friendly. It's not user friendly at all for the newer players of the game. So, yep, that's all I got to say for today. That's my time. I hope everybody has a great and wonderful day. I will see y'all around. Bye bye.